Hi, this is Doug Manch, and you're listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast.
Yes, welcome back, Loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. This is episode 116, and you are with your High Priest of Khonshu for another adventure into all things Moon Knight. And thanks for joining us, listeners. As always, I am your host for this evening, and although it may appear that I am here solo, I actually do have a very special guest which we'll get to. We are covering, thanks to the phase of the moon being the first quarter, something that we like to call Khonshu'S IDOLS. It's a review of toy and action figures, all to do with Moon Knight. So welcome. Not a very common segment on our show, but always a welcomed one. And tonight we are going to be looking at the MEZCO Toys CRESCENT Edition exclusive 1-12 Moon Knight figure. Very exciting indeed. And on this show, we have a very special guest, Brian Warshaw.
What is it good for? Absolutely. Now listen to me.
A fellow Loony, recent addition to our Facebook group. A big welcome, Brian. And Brian and I get to chat all about the CRESCENT Edition exclusive from MEZCO. A very fine action figure indeed, and a little bit of that later on. But first off, as always, a little bit of Moon Knight news. And when I say a little bit, I am not exaggerating. The main thing to come out this week for you loonies hankering for some Moon Knight news is basically around the traps you would have probably seen for Moon Knight casting. There was a prerequisite, and apparently Marvel are looking for a Jewish / Israeli Zac Efron type for their main man in the Moon Knight TV series. So this is quite interesting. It kind of reveals a bit of what they're kind of going for. Zac Efron type. I'm not sure what that means, other than an aesthetically good-looking sort of guy. But it's great that they're actually pursuing someone of Israeli or Jewish descent. So they're keeping very well much with the canon for Moon Knight. So that's really good to see. It's not too much. Other than that, some of us would have been expecting it. Others would have been thinking maybe they may have played it a bit different. But no, it's good to see. So a very little bit of news. I guess we can just all speculate as to what or who they'll start casting. So get out your Jewish or Israeli kind of fan casts and let's see what we can come up with. But anyway, that was the little bit of Moon Knight news over this week. As for, it's not really a Night Watch. A Night Watch being our kind of flagging of any Moon Knight appearances in comics over the week. I just wanted to make mention that Contagion is underway. Issue 1 got released this week as well. I haven't read it yet, but from what I hear, my good co-host Connor from Last Sons of Krypton Superman podcast, he's also a huge and the host of the Iron Fist podcast, Sons of the Dragon. He said that Contagion was really good, so looking forward to that. Apparently no Mooney in there, but this is a weekly series, so over the course of this week and the subsequent 4 weeks, there will be the issues for Contagion. Moon Knight is on the cover for issue 4, so we can only assume that he turns up on issue 4. Potential that he might be in there somewhere in issue 3. So, yep, Contagion is underway. And, yeah, that pretty much wraps it for the news this week, Loonies. So, look, I am going to shy away from any more dilly-dallying, and let's get straight to it. So, I'm going to play for you now the interview or the chat that I had with Loony, Brian Warshaw.
What is it good for? Absolutely. Now listen to me.
It's a good one. Brian knows his stuff, and he's also a podcaster himself, so he's very much, in his wheelhouse here in front of the mic. So, yep, without further ado, here is the interview and our review of the MEZCO exclusive Crescent Edition Moon Knight 1-12 figure. Yes, welcome, Brian, to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. And it's so very, very lucky to have you on the show to be able to go through this review because, as mentioned, I don't have the actual MEZCO toy, and this being a Khonshu'S Idol, a show dedicated to reviewing the toy figures, it's best to have someone that actually knows what they're talking about and has the figure. So I'm very grateful. Thank you for putting your hand up. Also, you're a recent member of the Moon Knight, the Facebook group. How are you finding it?
I find it actually one of the more enjoyable groups that I belong to, and I think the primary reason for that is that it's mostly fun all the time. I'm in groups for various other non-comics related things, certain guitar brands, other things like that, and invariably, at least once a month, things get kind of nasty and unpleasant in in those other groups, and the Into the Night group tends to stay fairly positive. Attacks on Max Bemis notwithstanding.
Yeah,
it's been pretty positive, and in today's online climate, it's nice to be part of a group where people aren't trying to kill each other all the time.
I mean, that's really encouraging to hear. I mean, we do pride ourselves on our community, and look, admittedly, it is a smaller community, so it is kind of, I guess, with those smaller communities, it's kind of easier to, to monitor those sorts of things. But with obviously the TV show being announced, that has actually brought a lot of new members in. There's been a lot of groundswell with the possibilities of Moon Knight now, who's going to appear on screen. Before we get into the toy figures, I thought it's a great opportunity to ask you, Brian, as well, your quick thoughts on the TV show. You're looking forward to it? Any apprehensions towards it in any way?
I'm definitely looking forward to it. I don't have any specific apprehensions. I mean, I guess the uncertainty here is that we've seen, Marvel shows produced predominantly by Netflix with varying degrees of success. And then we obviously had the, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show produced by ABC, which production value on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., wasn't really as good as the Netflix shows, but a lot of those particularly earlier seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. when I was still watching, what they lacked in production value, they made up for in interesting stories. So yes. I think it's kind of, we have to wait and see. The fact that these are officially Marvel Studios is encouraging, but it's Marvel Studios on TV. It's not necessarily going to have the same level of involvement from Kevin Feige that the films might have, just because he only has so much time in the day. But I'm excited. I'm not sitting here worrying that they're going to screw it up. I'm expecting them to do well, and I'll keep on expecting that until they prove me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll have a good gauge because the Moon Knight show's second came off the ranks. I mean, they'll release Miss Marvel. Actually, having said that, they'll release a whole heap of stuff before then. So by then we'll be able to know. We'll be able to gauge kind of. Will they do a decent job with Moon Knight? But like you as well. Remaining positive, very kind of confident, quietly confident, because Marvel do have a hold of it, through Disney Plus. So yeah, it'd be quite interesting. Anyway, Brian, we have something quite different. Rather than a TV show to review, we have, of course, the MEZCO CRESCENT edition of Moon Knight. So let me just read this product description first. This is off the MEZCO website, and this is what we'll be tackling. Moon Knight is at his strongest during a full moon, gaining super speed, agility, invisibility, and glimpses of astral planes. Donning his darker two-tone suit, the 1-12 collective Moon Knight CRESCENT edition is presented in a fitted adamantium suit with a 3D CRESCENT insignia and removable hoods. The combat-ready hero comes complete with a grappling hook baton and nunchucks that are connected by a real chain, a crescent blade, and a staff. An out-of-body experience in an Egyptian temple leads Mark Spector to become the mystically enhanced vigilante known as Moon Knight, delivering vengeance in Khonshu's name. Now, actually, Brian, just having read this, a few liberties taken on Moon Knight here, would you say?
I'm not an expert on Moon Knight. I'm a fairly recent convert, but yeah, some of these I was scratching my head and wondering, are all of these actually canonically true?
I'm by no means a hardcore fan, but I do like the guy and have been following him for a bit. There are a few things, his super speed, invisibility, I'm not too sure of.
Yeah, the invisibility seems to be at odds with that whole "I want them to see me coming" thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Well, good point. So I don't know who wrote up this little blurb. Also, the other interesting point is the adamantium suit. Have you read the Mark Spector Moon Knight run?
I have not. No,
you haven't. Okay, because it is.
I'm still catching up.
Okay, excellent. I mean, there's the good thing about Moon Knight is that it's an attainable thing to read all his stuff. You know what I mean? As opposed to, I don't know, Spider-Man or Captain America. He's got a smaller collection. But anyway, in the Mark Spector Moon Knight, he does have an adamantium suit. Now, this CRESCENT edition looks to me more like the Declan Shalvey inspired by Declan Shalvey and Warren Ellis's 2014 run. I'm not 100% sure that was adamantium, so I think they may have got their wires crossed there. I could be wrong. Loonies, please correct me if I am. So a couple of liberties there in the product description. Well, Brian, how about, again, this is from the MEZCO website. How about you read out the Moon Knight figure features available?
Sure, yeah. So a 112 collective body with over 32 points of articulation. And if you guys want to see what that articulation looks like, you can see it a little bit better on MEZCO's site if you go to a figure that doesn't have a fabric outfit covering their entire body. So if you look at the Wolverine that they have in jeans and a leather jacket, some of those pictures show him with the jacket off, and you can see that the elbows are double jointed, so they're very posable. And, underneath the suit for Moon Knight, the figure is constructed the same way. You've got articulation at the ankles, the wrists, lots of other places too, so there's a lot of that. The two head portraits, you've got the masked Moon Knight, of course, and then you've got the mask pulled over his head so you can see Mark's lovely face. There's hand-painted authentic detailing. We'll dive into that a little bit more as we review. Approximately 17 centimeters tall. For those of you that are on the Imperial system like I am here in the States, it's a 6-inch figure, essentially. There's 8 interchangeable hands, including 1 pair of fists, 1 pair of posing hands, 1 pair of grabbing hands, and 1 pair of, they say, throwing blade hands. Those are crescent darts, folks. And the right hand features a single crescent dart, and the left hand features 3 posed between the fingers of that fist. And it says each 112 collective Moon Knight figure is packaged in a collector-friendly box designed with collectors in mind.
Oh, and again, I guess we'll kind of go through that in one of the aspects. Quite a variety of hands here, Brian. It seems to be sounds like a very versatile figure for for any collectors who love to get their figures in a pose. So, yeah, very, very encouraging. Look, a bit of background before we get into this review. So this was released, this was a summer exclusive of this year, 2019. It was an exclusive first for the San Diego Comic-Con of this very year as well. And then they opened up pre-orders from June 26th from 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And one of the first things I wanted to ask you, Brian, as well, was did you purchase this at the con, or did you get this as a pre-order?
I pre-ordered this probably within 5 minutes of the email coming from MEZCO saying that it was available to pre-order.
Right, yes. Yeah, are you prone to go to conventions?
I do. I live on the East Coast of the United States, so while I would love to make it out to San Diego at some point, and it would be easy for me to get tickets because, as we'll talk about more after the review, I have press access because I write for a few websites. The cost of travel and being away from my family for a week is just not something that I've been keen to do recently. But New York Comic Con, some of the stuff in Philadelphia here in the States, I'll usually go to those each year. And then, of course, Toy Fair in New York City in February is a favorite show of mine as well.
Oh, right. And actually, I might as well ask you now as well. So you are an avid toy figure collector as well?
You know, I have not always been. And so when I started getting into comics in 2013, never really read them as a kid.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so shortly after that, I began writing reviews for a Batman site, and
we're only sorry, I only allowed one of them in each episode. Anyway, we'll let that slide. Okay. Yeah.
And so with that, it was a pretty big site, and with that came a lot of access to collectibles for review, and so I ended up getting a few things along the way and slowly started collecting things. And now it's at the point where I'm doing what I said I would never do, which is I'm spending a fair bit of my own money on collectibles as well. And this is now I think my fourth or fifth MEZCO figure, and I've got numerous others pre-ordered, including, of course, the beautiful all-white Moon Knight that's going to be coming out soon, and Magneto, and
yes.
Yeah.
Do you know when that? I mean, because in Australia here, because I've ordered it as well, I'm getting the white one. It's at the end of November, so I'm not sure of how that works. If it's the same or a way later than you guys, is it coming? Do you know the date?
So the range that MEZCO shows on their website for the White Moon Knight in the States is between September and November for shipping.
Okay. Yep.
And they're usually you usually get an email that it's getting ready to ship, and that if you have any outstanding balances, it'll charge your card. For the Moon Knight we're talking about today, and another figure that they recently shipped to me, it's kind of the first time where they said, hey, this is getting ready to ship. And then there was actually a pretty big delay. I don't know if they had a bad batch of figures arrive from the manufacturing plants over in China or what, but there's kind of a delay there. So be patient if you don't get it exactly when they say it's coming. There's numerous reasons why something might get delayed. So
yeah, and I guess if you have a paper trail as well, and if you've got everything documented, you're fine. It's just a bit of a waiting game, and totally understandable that things can be delayed and shipments and such. So, but anyway, it does sound like that we are getting towards the end of when they do they're doing the US shipping. Let's talk international shipping. So yeah, okay. So from September, we're receiving it late November. Now, so just quickly before we really get into it, Brian, I'm going to throw it to you for this review. So as mentioned, you have a few figures as well. And this year, MEZCO have released, on the Marvel side of things, the 1-12s, they've released the Spider-Man Homecoming figure. They've also got the Thor Ragnarok, Iron Man, the Black Panther movie Black Panther. They have Blade, the Punisher, the Netflix series Punisher, Logan.
So just a quick note on Blade.
Yeah, sure.
So
Yep.
I mentioned I like to go to Toy Fair in New York City, and there was actually an exclusive Blade that was one of the items in the press bag from MEZCO. And that would have been my first MEZCO figure. I actually ended up selling that, after the show. And it's, I don't really have any, experience with Blade, and so I don't really have any affinity for Blade, but yeah, it's very sweet. And that's one of the neat things about Toy Fair is that there's always some exclusive goodies for the press that come there. Toy Fair is not a consumer show. It's actually an industry show. And so you've got press, and then you've got people who work in the industry. So it's kind of a different thing.
Right. Oh, geez, far out of Blade, and especially now with the movie coming out, Brian. I don't know. It could be hard to come by these days. But no. Well, I mean, that's great. Cool. So again, Punisher, Logan. We have Hela. There's Daredevil, of course. Cyclops, Doctor Strange, Wolverine 5, Logan, Ronin. Sorry. I'm not sure how that. Yeah, that's a bit of a weird one. Cable. There's Iron Man Armor Model 42. There's a Spider-Man Homecoming, the homemade suit. There's also another Daredevil, the Vigilante, the black suit from the Netflix series and the comics. Captain Marvel. Of course, we have that white Moon Knight. Magneto, as you mentioned, Brian. We're having the Crescent Edition Moon Knight, which we're looking at today. Spider-Man Far From Home. They've got a version there as well. And the last one I saw as well was Iron Fist, which is pretty cool. I do like my Iron Fist. But yes, we'll see how we go with it. Anyway, we're going to get into this review. We're going to base our review. I had a look at a site. It's mwctoys.com. Are you familiar with this site, Brian, by any chance?
I am not.
No, okay. Look, I just did a search, and they seem to have a pretty good framework for reviews. So they go through packaging, sculpting, paint, articulation, accessories, outfit, fun factor, value, things to watch out for, and overall. So we're going to loosely base our review on this. And yeah, Brian, I mean, you're the man with the product in hand. Let's kick off with packaging then. So, have you got yours at the ready? Or some notes?
I sure do, yeah. Well, I actually have the box in my hand too, because I really like looking at it, and I'm staring at it right now.
Right. Well, I mean, first off the bat, as you mentioned in that description, is it a box designed with collectors in mind?
I would say probably not.
Oh, okay.
No, it is if you want to display just the box. So a lot of MEZCO's figures have an outer sleeve, and then you slide out the core box underneath, and there's a window so you can see the figure inside. This particular one does not have that type of setup. So you have the opaque box, and then inside you just slide out the plastic trays that contain the figure. So, and there was another sort of limited exclusive that I got from MEZCO, earlier this year, a character who I've already mentioned once and who will not be named again. And that one was similar. So it seems like with these MEZCO exclusive ones, they don't have, even though they said it in the description, they don't have their typical, window box on the inside. They just have an opaque box, and then the trays slide out.
Oh, that's slightly disappointing, isn't it? I mean, it sounds like the standard packaging seemed a lot more amenable to putting it on your shelf and actually seeing the figure and having it in the box still, right?
Well, I can see it I can see it being disappointed for some people. I take everything out of the box.
Okay.
Window boxes usually don't really do anything for me, because in 99% of the cases, a window box will show you what's inside, but what's inside is usually the figure obscured by a whole lot of plastic that it's wrapped in. And so you can't really see it clearly. And again, that's okay for some people. That's what some folks want. But for me, it really didn't matter. And I actually think that the box that it came in is very sharp looking. So I don't really mind it.
Okay, so you'd give it like a general thumbs up for the packaging. It's quite good for your interest. Yeah.
Yeah, and on the front of the box has a Moon Knight logo. It looks like the looks like the lettering from the front of the Houston and Finch run.
Oh, okay.
And that looks really nice. It's a black box. All the lettering is in white. And then on the back of the box, you have a really sweet drawing of Moon Knight, in this costume, but it makes great use of the negative space, the black on the box. And it's very, very stylized, very nice. One of the greatest things about MEZCO's packaging, beyond the box itself, is that when you actually take the trays of plastic out to get at the figure, it's several nested trays of plastic. And so you've got the accessories held in place, not by tape that you have to try to tear and get stuck on your hands, and that sometimes has accessories stuck to it.
Yes.
But you just lift a piece of plastic off of the layer beneath it, and you have access to everything on that layer.
Oh, good.
It's a great design. It makes it very secure, but also very easy to get everything out, and the presentation just looks really nice when you take it out of the box. It's very ordered, and
okay.
I don't know. I like that about them.
Oh, no, that's good. It does sound a lot more, user-friendly. I've got a few Hasbro Marvel Legends figures. Obviously, one of them is Moon Knight. I'm not sure if you've got that as well, Brian.
I do. The same Marvel Now style suit.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, I mean, you're talking about the packaging, and I'm like a bull in a china shop when it comes to, so I'm not your toy collector who tries to keep things pristine. A lot of it is very hard to get out. Like, I remember the cape through a hole in the plastic sleeve, and then the accessories are taped in, and you've literally got to crush the plastic to get it out, So that would be actually a very good aspect to actually have, that packaging a lot more easier to access. So, okay, great. How about
the only little note I'll say about the packaging on this particular unit, and this could be just a fluke with the one that I got, is that this is the first time where I've gotten a figure from them, and one of the accessories was actually loose in the trays when I took it out, and may have actually caused a little bit of damage to the paint on the right foot of mine. So it's not substantial damage, and in my mind I can sort of retcon it and say that it's just battle damage. But yeah, just I don't know if that's a problem that other folks are going to see in this one. But with the other 4 or 5 figures I've received, all accessories are generally well situated and not swimming around in there.
I know this is exactly why we're doing the review, Brian. So that's great to earmark any of these things, because I'm imagining we have a whole range of loonies, from your casual toy figure collector to your dead set serious one. So it's good. It's good to kind of flag that. That's great. Just before we go into the next one as well, you got me interested. The artwork at the back you mentioned. Do you recognize it at all? Is it one of the past Moon Knight artists, or is it just something totally new?
I do not recognize it as any distinct artist, and part of the reason for that is, first off, I don't recognize the pose as being anybody's particular drawing, but because of the way the image is composed on the back here, and just making a lot of use of the negative space here, if it was based on some prior Moon Knight art, it's probably been altered to get the aesthetic that they're going for here. But I can send you a picture after we're done recording, and I'm sure that if this is from pre-existing art, the folks listening will identify it in no time.
Oh, that'll be great. That'd be fantastic, because thanks, you also reminded me. So I've actually downloaded all the MEZCO promo shots for this figure, and what I'll do as well is create an album in our Facebook group. So any loonies listening to this episode, you can access that, and you can visually check out what we're talking about as we go through this. So and we'll include that that packaging.
Well, I can do you one better than that too.
Yeah.
I'll get you all of the images that I took of my particular figure, and
even
the
better.
group on Facebook can see them before I even get my review up. So
fantastic! No, that'll be great. Thank you, Brian. That'll be really
no problem.
good. Excellent.
My pleasure.
Cool. We're trying to kind of synchronize everything here, podcasts, Facebook groups, it's all happening. All right, well, sculpting then. So we're getting into sculpting. Again, Brian, I'm sure you know a lot more about this than I do. So this is basically just the moldings, right, of the plastic and how that's yep.
Yeah, and I mean, it's sculpted very nicely, and that's par for the course on MEZCO's figures. They're all generally sculpted nicely. We'll talk more about the costume in just a little bit, but part of the reason why the overall look of a MEZCO figure tends to just be nicer is that most of them do have fabric costumes, and that hides things like elbow joints and stuff like that kind of break the illusion a little bit. So, but the actual parts and the body shape and all that, it's all sculpted very well. The hoods, and that was a little bit of a brief controversy when the figures first went up for pre-order, is that the original teaser image that came out of Toy Fair showed a fabric hood, and the actual final figures have a molded hood. And so I actually like the molded hood because it'd be very, very difficult to have a fabric hood look like Moon Knight's hood ought to look on a consistent basis, and I think the molding was the right way to go, and they did a great job with both hoods that are included here.
Yeah.
And
can I just say, Brian, sorry, also as well, it's a good point about that molded hood, because we did do another Khonshu's IDOLS segment a while ago with my co-host Connor, and we actually did an overview of all the Moon Knight toy figures to date. It was a very, general overview. And a few of them, the early ones did have the fabric hoods. And can I just say, personally, they just look atrocious.
Yeah.
So the molded hoods are a really good way to go. And I totally agree with you. I believe the molded hoods just work a lot better, especially with Moon Knight, because it's so synonymous with his classic costume. You've got to get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't do that with fabric. And the head sculpting is pretty outstanding as well. I mean, it's a 6-inch scale figure, so you have to get up close to see some of the detail. But I mean, the eyebrow you can't see the eyebrows themselves, but you can see the furrowed brow through the mask. There's just a lot of nice molded detail on the mask itself, and then of course when you swap out for the other head that has Mark's face more visible, the sculpting there is really, really nice as well.
Is this, would you classify MEZCO as kind of your top tier when it comes to 6-inch figures? I mean, they seem to be very good. I'm a recent, like I said, a pretty recent convert to this way of life, but from all the figures that I've seen, and we can talk a little bit more about this when we get down to talking about the overall value of this figure, but they're the top tier in what I've seen, and there's a number of factors that go into that. I'm just wondering. Yeah, we'll get to it. I'm just wondering if there are any other lines out there. I'm very new to it as well. Like, my experience ranges from the Hasbro Marvel figures and MEZCO, which I've only just discovered this year. So, and I'm just astounded at them, not looking at all the other figures. Like the Daredevil one, big Daredevil fan, and a couple of others like Spider-Man. Just very impressed with their sculpting. Unless we have any other points there, Brian, do you want to go to paint?
Sure, yeah. Other than the little flaw that I mentioned on the right foot, which might have been caused by the loose accessory, the paint here is impeccable, and this is something that MEZCO is just completely excellent at, and I would say, talking about are they the top tier at this size, I have not seen paint this good on any other brand. And one of the things I think that they have to their advantage for coming up with a decent paint job here is that the costumes are usually composed of several distinct parts, even on a single part of the body. So if you look at the chest plate on here, you can see that on the product images from MEZCO. You've got this hard plastic chest plate that is attached to the fabric costume underneath. That's a lot easier to get a clean paint line on if they're attaching that white plate afterwards. And same thing if you look at the gauntlets Now, the gauntlets do have, in a single piece, black portions and white portions, and the paint there is outstanding as well. Very clean lines, no overpainting or anything like that. So, it's outstanding. One of the things too is that with the fabric costume on these MEZCO figures, a lot of what you're looking at in those product images is not something that necessarily had to be painted per se, but fabric that was dyed that particular color and then used in the product.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I guess I'm just looking. Look, predominantly, of course, Moon Knight is black and white. So I guess with the paint, you're talking about obviously the precision with applying the paint, which is fantastic as well. I'm looking at the face of Mark Spector, and that looks really kind of. I mean, we're talking about delicate, brush strokes, if you can call it that. It looks very detailed. So yeah, how does that look? Close up, is it?
It looks excellent close up, and I'm glad you brought that, because I had meant to go to that next, but so the detail work looks really great. Up close, it still holds up, looks fantastic. One of the things, and maybe it's just my mind playing tricks on me, but there's a concept that if you watch any videos online about visual effects in Marvel movies or anything like that, there's this concept called subsurface scattering.
Okay.
And if you think about it with human skin, it's if you've got light hitting your skin, there's a very thin portion to the eye that almost looks translucent, where the skin meets the light.
Yes,
it's kind of the way that and so I almost perceive, and maybe it's the material that they used on the head, but it's just the way light hits this just feels a little bit more authentic. It's not the way light just hits a flatly painted plastic head on any other figure you might have.
Wow. And is this consistent with your other MEZCO figures as well? I mean, I'm just trying to...
It is. Yeah, I have two figures featuring the rich boy with a cape whose name we shall not say again. And both of those also feature unmasked heads.
Okay.
And it's the same scenario here, where the face, it's not just that the color of the face and the slight variability of skin tone, details like that. It's not just those things, but it is the way that light seems to interact with the surface of the face. It's very impressive.
Yeah, and these so these other figures that you had as well, are they relatively new as well, or are they a few years old? I guess where I'm going at is I'm wondering if MEZCO have refined and honed their craft with this, or if it has been something that they've been quite well known for.
Yeah, good question. And the ones that I have are fairly new.
Okay.
So both of them were pre-orders last year and then actually fulfilled this year. If you look at the MEZCO site and look at some of the other figures that they have, and you look at unmasked faces, I think you can kind of see this across the board. So it's I don't know if they've been doing it for long, but if you look at even some of the older ones that are currently listed on the site, which granted are not the oldest ones that MEZCO's ever produced, but if you were to scroll all the way down and look at some of these ones that they've produced, and now I'm promising something that the site won't deliver. The oldest one they have up there right now is the Spider-Man Homecoming one, which is not that old.
Oh, okay.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because it's one of those things that really just, I think, elevates a figure to the next level, because you can have, not to say that it's any of it's easy, because I'm not a toy maker, but you can have a pretty good proportioned body. You can have accessories and armor to make things look cool as well. But then if you get a face that's kind of stylized and a bit hokey, then kind of you lose the illusion. Looking at the MEZCO promo shot here of the Mark Spector head, it amazes me that that's a 6-inch figure. So that really does, I think, I haven't got it in front of me, but I really think it does elevate it to the next level.
It sure does.
Yeah. articulation, Brian. So any points here? We did talk, a lot about some of the articulation already, but...
Yeah, well, the one thing we didn't talk about, and this is probably the key thing for folks to realize, is that we've been talking about all of the benefits of the fabric suit that a lot of these MEZCO figures have. There is one significant drawback, depending on what you aim to do with your figure, and that's that a fabric suit restricts articulation somewhat. And so, under the suit, you've got this highly articulated figure, but you cannot use all of that articulation to its fullest extent because you've got this fabric suit that's fighting against you. So, the legs are pretty good. You can get a pretty good kicking pose, whether that's a side kick or even a front kick, which, could be especially fun if you're posing him in the air, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But his arms especially are very difficult to get very high. So if you're just raising his arms out to the side, that's not too bad. If you want to just swing his arms straight up, almost like he's, pretending to fly like a certain other company's character.
Oh, we can call him Superman. He's great. I like him.
He and Captain America are just the same. No, they probably are actually more similar than Batman and Superman if you get down, the Batman and Moon Knight if you get down to it. But anyway, so yeah, the fabric suit looks amazing. It does limit articulation to some degree, and it's just something you should be aware of. Probably less of an issue here with Moon Knight. For most poses you might want to do. The other figure I got recently from them was the John Stewart Green Lantern.
Okay.
And it's that the articulation restriction is a little bit more of an issue there, because I would love to pose him with at least one of his arms, going straight up next to his head so he can, appear like he's really flying through space. But
so that's across the board, and it's something to do with their shoulders then, because they mentioned before 32 different articulation points, and it seems that it does fall short a little on that. I'm no biologist. Is it the rotator cuff or whatever of the shoulder, right? So it can't actually reach up totally.
I don't think it's a limitation of the articulation itself. Uh-huh. I really think it's that the fabric suit is restricting the motion.
Okay. But isn't John Stewart, he doesn't have does he have a fabric suit?
He's got a fabric suit as well.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, when you say fabric suit, I'm just assuming you mean the cape, but you mean the whole...
No, yeah. So that's on almost every MEZCO figure. Instead of having, the costume represented by hard plastic, it's actually a fabric suit.
Okay.
And that's why it looks so amazing, because like I said, you've got the joints that you would normally see on a Marvel Legends or something like that. Right. They're all beneath the costume instead of yeah.
Okay, so I thought, because when you were explaining that, I thought you just meant the cape covering the joints and stuff. But there's a lot of loonies out there now going, "Duh, Ray," with the MEZCO. So
that's okay.
That's fantastic. No, because I don't have it in front of me, but I'm so looking forward to getting the white one now. That's really good. I mean. Actually,
and the cape, by the way, you mentioned the cape. The cape doesn't get in the way of anything because the cape is fabric as well.
Wow.
Yeah, the cape doesn't inhibit anything.
Okay, because I'm also just thinking, just briefly, Iron Fist, the figure there. I'm sure you've seen the promo shots for that as well, Brian.
Yep.
There have been a lot of mixed reviews about it. I know a few people that are actually... one of them hosts the Iron Fist podcast, and he was a little disappointed in the look of it. And I think that went to, that was because of the fabricness of the suit. It didn't actually show. I guess it's not sculpted. His muscles aren't sculpted underneath it because it's underneath the fabric, right? With Moon Knight, you can kind of get away with it because the suit, is kind of reflecting his anatomy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think with the Iron Fist, I know I saw a lot of complaints when that one debuted from folks that were wondering why he didn't have like a waist sash.
Oh, yes.
And MEZCO actually listened to that, and the final figure will ship with a waist sash as well. So
okay,
but no, I can understand. For some figures, the fabric I think is a detriment. And if you look at the Netflix Daredevil, not the Vigilante edition, but just the regular red suit, I really don't think the fabric works for that one, or at least the way they chose to go with it. The suit just looks a little bit baggy.
Okay.
It ends up looking a little bit strange because of that, and it's really because of that. That's the main reason I did not end up getting the Netflix Daredevil figure from them, because it just, something just doesn't look quite right.
That's really funny because it's based on a live action TV show, you know what I mean? So you think that it would reflect almost exactly what you see on TV. But yeah, okay. I should check it out as well. Do dig that show. Accessories, Brian. How are we going with all these? There's a fair few of these accessories. Are they any good? Are they really small? Do you lose them easily, or?
Well, one of the nice things, all of these 112 collective figures from MEZCO come with a fairly high quality plastic accessory bag. It's
cool.
It's got a like a Ziploc type closing mechanism, and it feels like it's a bit thicker than your average sandwich bag or something like that. And so that's helpful, and there's a spot on the front where you can take a marker and write which figure your accessory bag pertains to. They're all made very well, and I really like them. Like having the real chain for the nunchucks and the grappling hook baton is a nice thing. The one thing that I probably would have, well, it's more than one thing. There's two things that I wish that they would have included that they didn't. And one of them is, why not a plain old truncheon? So
yeah, exactly.
It would have been really easy, single piece of plastic. That would have been a nice thing to see. And the accessories are the same on the white one that's coming out, except there might be some color variation. But so we're not going to get a plain old truncheon. And the other thing is, I really wish that they would have included some loose crescent darts.
So they're all just connected to the hand. Yeah,
and the bat-eared fellow that I referenced earlier.
I love how you're skating around it.
I'm having a blast. He came with a number of loose batarangs, and I was actually able, when I was doing a review for one of those, to take one of the hands and put the batarangs between the fingers and kind of achieve the same effect that they're going for here with Mark, and it looked really great.
Yeah.
And so I kind of, particularly because this figure and the white one, MEZCO's prices have gone up a little bit this year. These are $5 American more expensive than the two Batmans that I've got, and it just, I realize some of the expense probably goes towards having the real metal chains, but just the opening it up and seeing that there aren't those crescent darts in there, it feels a little bit like a cheat.
I mean, they're possibly the first things you think of. A casual fan, or even a normal fan, you think of with Moon Knight with his weaponry, the crescent darts. Yeah, that's a bit. I mean, I wonder why. I mean, it's funny how they've included that in the hand. I guess they have given you 8 interchangeable hands, so they're giving you a bit of versatility there. But I would agree with you as well. You'd want it separate, and you'd want to play around with it, and then have the option of, as you say, have Mark hold it, or otherwise, So
and if you compare it to the accessory complement that came with the two man figures, you've got a bunch of interchange. I think you've got 9 interchangeable hands for those guys.
Okay,
and you've got a drone, a sonar gun, a grappling gun with 2 grappling bolts. A large batarang, and then you have, I think it's 10 normal size Batarang. So it just seems like in terms of the number of accessories in there, you're getting less. And again, you've got the metal chains on the nunchucks and the grappling baton.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would have probably been happier if they would have not given us nunchucks, because it's not what I think about when I think about Moon Knight, and give us the darts.
Well, I'll go one step further and get rid of maybe keep the nunchucks, get rid of the grappling hook. I mean, Moon Knight at least uses nunchucks here and there. Like in the 90s, at least he did. Grappling hooks, I don't know, just going through the comics I've read of him, can't say I've really seen him use one. So, save costs there, take that away, have a few crescent darts. We've got to...
the nice thing about the grappling hook, though, and I'll, fully say you educated me on the nunchucks. And like I said, I'm fairly new to the character, but
Sure.
The nice thing about the grappling hook is when I took that out of the box and I posed him with it, I wasn't thinking Mark is going to use this to climb a tall building.
Well, yeah.
I looked at this and I thought, this looks like the sort of grisly thing that Mark would use to really wreck somebody.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
And so I like it in that regard, but I agree with you that it's not more important than having crescent darts in the box.
I mean, apparently Mark can turn invisible and he's got super speed, so anything can happen, I guess. So we got a fair few things here, though. There is a crescent blade. That's a bigger version.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. And that's, I'm assuming he can hold that and he can pose with it, right? So.
Yes. Yep.
Is it, so what's that made out of? Is it bendy? Does it get like a little bent at the top? And I've got like a Black Knight figure from Hasbro. It's got the ebony blade. It's fantastic, but the ebony blade's freaking wonky all over the place. It just looks a little silly. Does it maintain its integrity? I guess what I'm saying.
Well, I haven't been putting it to any stress tests, but it was nice and straight right out of the box, and it's made out of pretty solid plastic. The great thing is the hands on these MEZCO figures, they have a little bit of flex in them, so you can get the accessories in.
Great. And
they're
hold
not
firmly.
Super flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do hold firmly. So the hand has give, so the accessory doesn't have to.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And this is one of the things I noticed, which would be pretty cool. The base, there's a display base. So this is new to me, like with just toy figures. Is this something, so can you like fix him onto it, or is it just like a disc that he stands on?
So the figure has the standard little holes on the bottom of the feet.
Oh, okay. So it does. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. The display base does have a little stud that's sticking up when it comes out of the box. You can take that stud out and put in the adjustable posing post that you see in the product photos. And
right. Yes.
That posing post is mainly useful for if you want to get Mark airborne.
Yes.
Yeah. One note real quick before we talk about that, the posing post, is that the base in the product photography for this,
yep.
It's actually, the final product is actually inverted, the colors. So it is predominantly, yeah. It's got a black moon and a white circle behind it. So.
Oh. Was that a bit off-putting? Were you expecting otherwise? Or, I mean, were you expecting, are you disappointed by that? Or?
I wasn't necessarily disappointed. I mean, it is a little odd, but it's entirely possible that the white version is going to come with what you see pictured here, and that they just didn't have the finalized one here in the photo. So that posing arm that I mentioned, it is, if you want to get him up in the air, it's helpful. The only drawback is that if you want to pose the cape when he's in the air, which let's face it, unless he's jumping up, if he's in the air and it looks like he's falling down,
yeah.
you want to make the cape look like the cape is reacting to the wind resistance flowing up as well. And it also includes some posing wires that can attach to that posing post, but I have found those frustrating on every figure that I've had that has them. One, because they're just very difficult to get the way that you want them to. It never seems like they're, or actually rather, it seems like they're a little bit too long for the cape in every scenario. and then once you get it to where the cape is posed in a way that you actually really like it, it seems like those posing wires are usually pretty visible at that point.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Talk about breaking the illusion.
Yeah.
If know that it comes with those things, but I don't know. I feel like most people are probably gonna be with me on that one. That the posing post and the wires don't necessarily add a lot of value.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, true. I can understand that as well. I mean, it's a good idea, but maybe the execution. But what else can you? Yeah, what else can you do? I guess it's a bit difficult.
I mean, you could put wire in the cape, which some manufacturers do.
Oh, right.
But
they make it really malleable. Yeah.
But the problem with that is that, at least in my experience, when I've had a figure that has wire in the cape, it does look great when you want to pose the cape.
Yeah.
But if you want to have the cape just hanging down like it's, normal resting, flowing down towards the ground, it's usually very difficult to make a wire cape look natural at that point.
Well, then maybe go some middle ground. Maybe have a somehow removable wire in the cape that you can actually insert in. That would be.
There's another rich citizen of Gotham City coming out next year. And he actually, and this is what they should do.
Yeah.
I think going forward, hopefully they will. He has an interchangeable cape that has a wire in it. So you get the best of both worlds. You've got the regular cape for, regular standing poses, and then you can wire pose the cape instead of using those really hideous other wires I was talking about.
Yeah. Oh, great. That's a good idea. Far out. I mean, maybe in future Moon Knight editions, we can get something like that. It would be really cool, actually, to see a Mr. Knight.
I'm hoping they do it. I would be really surprised if they didn't. It's so obvious.
Yeah. And somehow have him with his jacket on, and then just have him with the vest on, with the gloves.
Well, look at the Wolverine that I mentioned with the jeans and the leather jacket.
Yeah.
Or look at the Cyclops figure that also comes with a leather jacket. They could do it.
Okay.
They could give him a little tailored Mr. Knight jacket. And maybe even a little tailored tie. I mean, it would be great.
Nice. I'm seriously going to tag MEZCO in all when this episode comes out, and I'm going to hopefully just I don't know, do something. Anyway,
well, with the show coming out too, it's a good time to sort of put a little bit of that pressure on and say, hey, you'd probably sell a lot of these.
Yeah, I mean, well, as you say, they listened as well, didn't they, to the Iron Fist? Somehow with the sash around him. So it seems like they do listen, and they are receptive, which is very encouraging for any, collector and fan. So with outfit then, Brian, we've got a few, we did talk about the cape. We did talk about a lot of the, pros and cons of both. Are there any other extra notes here for the outfit?
Just that I do love the outfit. I think the distinct white chest plate, looks really, really good. I know that MEZCO takes some design liberties, and, they would call this, their version of this version of Moon Knight. But, when you just pick it up and look at it, it really looks like the best version of the, Declan Shalvey Warren Ellis suit that you could get. It looks close enough to that the liberties that MEZCO has taken, don't really overwhelm that core design, and I just think it looks great. Yeah,
absolutely. Just one final thing there for the outfit, comparing it to what I have, which is a Hasbro, and you've got as well the Marvel Legends figures. It is good to know that the stuff like the chest plate and the belt look and seem a lot more secure than that of the Hasbro gear, because it does, since they are, and you mentioned that with the painting, right? Since those are actually separate components in the Hasbro thing, it does not get flimsy, but it just seems a little loose, and to have like a nice compact costume like this, it just looks great. So, very good. Fun factor. So if we're looking at this as, did you enjoy this? I'm sure you enjoy this more than your other Bat-related figures, Brian.
Sure. No, I have fun. I have fun with all of these.
Yeah, sure.
Usually when I get one of these, I won't even open it until I have time to shoot photos, because it's just a lot easier with all the accessories to sort of take them out in sequence and do it all at one time. But it's a blast all by itself, and I think you can kind of see that in some of the photos that I'll send along.
Yeah, great.
But it's also a blast the more of these that you have, because with casual fans saying things like, Moon Knight is basically Marvel's man, which I think we can all agree is complete hogwash.
Yes.
It's actually very fun to take pictures of Moon Knight and Man facing off when you've got those two figures in your arsenal. So
and they both look very good as well. So yeah.
Right, exactly. So it's a lot of fun. I'm still deciding whether or not to do two videos about this figure, because I've been working on some original music inspired by Moon Knight for this figure, and with the time that's taking, I might put out a simple review first, and then do the more stylized one after that. But it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, you'll definitely have to let us know and post it in the group and such, and when that review hits, and it'll be great to see, and be good to hear your original music as well. Far out, got me.
I can send you a rough cut of that after we talk today too.
Oh, brilliant, excellent. No, definitely. Okay, again, just looking quickly, wrapping value. So, is this worth the extra $5 US? You mentioned before a few less accessories, some which don't exactly hit the mark, like the crescent blades, crescent darts in the hand. How do you see this value-wise?
Yeah, so this is, like I said, $85 American, which definitely sounds steep if you consider, a 6-inch action figure, or at least to some folks, it might sound steep. But if you compare it to other 6-inch figures, Marvel Legends are around $20 American, but they have far fewer accessories, and they're, there's no fabric suit and things like that. And like we talked about, faces don't look nearly as realistic. Moving up, you've got, the SH Fig, I don't know if it's Fig Arts or Figuarts or whatever. And then you have Medicom, who I think primarily makes DC figures in terms of comic book characters. And, those range from $50 to sometimes even more than MEZCO figures.
Okay.
And while some of those have nice accessories, I don't think they look nearly as good as the MEZCO figures. Like I said, MEZCO has fabric, those other brands don't. I just think that makes the final product look better. Those other brands, SH and Medicom, they have wires in the capes generally, I believe, for, a character like Batman. And I already mentioned, the benefits and the drawbacks of that. And it can be kind of hard for just a resting pose for that wire cape to look good. Comparing it to other MEZCO figures, like we said, seems like the price went up a little bit this year. Seems like, Batman had more accessories for $5 cheaper, which, it's not the end of the world, but, it does feel like you're getting a little bit less while you're getting squeezed for a little bit more money. And I don't value the metal chains quite enough to make it feel like it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, when it obviously, you're conscious of it, then yeah, there is something there. Whether or not, $5 more is, too much or too little, the value, yeah, obviously is apparent when you do notice it. You know what I mean? And I know that you do review and you do look closely at the figures as well, but I believe that people that do collect the MEZCO figures, would probably come to the same decision as well.
Sure.
And overall, Brian, then, so the value, look, we're talking about everything from what we started, the packaging, sculpting, paint, articulation, accessories, outfit, all that. Actually, what I'll do, any words there for overall on this figure?
Yeah, and I'll try to be brief. I know that we're chatting our way past our original time frame, but I do love it. I think it's absolutely worth it. MEZCO have taken some interpretive liberties, but if you want a Marvel Now style Moon Knight figure, this is definitely the best one you can get, and it'll cost you more than what I think some people expect to pay for a 6-inch figure. But when you compare it to other figures at this size, you can see the value and the quality of the costume and the quality and number of accessories.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'd agree again as well. I'm, like I mentioned, looking forward to the white Moon Knight version coming out. We'll do a review of that, so that will be out in a few months. That would be cool. It'll be good. Maybe, Brian, if you're up for it, have you back for that review.
That would be my pleasure.
Yeah, fantastic.
I did look at your rating system, since I think that's where we're going next.
Exactly. A convoluted moon rating system. So we're going to use the same ratings that we've used for everything. Yeah, Brian, what would you give this rating from a new moon to possibly a blue moon?
I would give it a waxing gibbous.
A waxing gibbous. Excellent. A high end, or are you looking at a low end waxing gibbous?
I think I'm looking around the 8, so the low end waxing gibbous.
Okay. Excellent. Let me just log that in.
And I'll clarify that and just say that is, it's getting dinged a little bit because of the loose part that was in the package that possibly marred the right foot. And then also because, at the end of the day, I prefer my Moon Knight in all white. Ah, well, that's, can't fault that. So that's good. That's good. Personally, I do love. I'm very impressed with the Declan Shalvey costume, but yeah, the classic costume to me is pretty cool as well. So, excellent. So an 8 out of 10 loonies. This is a MEZCO exclusive. Look, it's pretty hard to come by now. I believe the website says it's sold out, so you might have to check out the likes of eBay or private sales to maybe come across it. But wanted to thank you, Brian, so much for being able to give us a very in-depth review. Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
And before we go, of course, Brian, if people want to hear and read your reviews more, where can people find you?
Sure. So personally, I'm not anywhere except for Facebook. So if you guys want to find me on Facebook personally, just reach out to me through the group or find something I've commented on and find me that way. My site, Comics Now, that I run with a friend of mine, Jay, you can find us at comics-now.com. On Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, we are Comics Now Cast. And you can find our podcast on all major platforms as well. Just search for Comics Now.
Yeah, great. Yeah, exactly. A really good podcast as well. You actually have a couple of interviews there. I saw, I listened to, I think the latest one that you conducted at a convention. Was that right?
Yes, yeah. So one of my oldest professional acquaintances in the comic book industry is a letterer named Taylor Esposito.
Yes. And
he does a lot of work he has done a lot of work for DC. Right now, he's not doing any DC books at the moment, but he was at a convention in Philadelphia, and I went up there, and we hooked up and got to talk. So that was nice.
Oh, fantastic. It is really good. Loonies will have all these in the show notes as well, so you've just got to look down while you're listening to this and you can hit the relevant links. Once again, Brian, thank you so much for your review and hope to hear from you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
That was my chat with Brian Warshaw.
What is it good for? Absolutely. Now listen to me.
So, Loonies, we're just going to go to a quick break, and after hearing a couple of messages from our fellow collective members, we'll be right back with some listener feedback. Catch you then.
Hey there. I'm sure you know about the Capes and Lunatics podcast, but have you heard about the Capes and Lunatics Sidekicks podcast? It's a fun home for classic and new reviews of just about everything. We have the Ultimate Spider Cast, where we cover everything Spider-Man. The Quantum Zone, where we talk the classic Marvel character Quasar and do deep dives on the cosmic side of Marvel. We also have Comic Capers, where we cover everything old and new in comics. It could be anything, any company, any decade. And we also have our Media Mondays, where we cover some kind of TV show, be it a Arrowverse current hit or our summer specials where we do reviews of classic episodes of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer spinoff Angel. So, if you're a fan of pop culture and media, you should really check it out. And I promise you, you won't be disappointed.
I am Connor from the House of L.
And I am Ray from the House of Zod.
We are two of the many, many survivors of Krypton's destruction, and we have made our home in Australia, and dare I say, have become Australians, for better or worse. But we have also decided to read Superman comics, read Superman books, watch Superman shows, cartoons, movies, basically everything Superman, and from an Australian perspective as well. Whether you're a seasoned fan, like me,
or whether you are coming in fresh, wide-eyed and wanting to learn more like me, then this podcast is for you. Join us for our bi-weekly adventures available on all good podcast catchers.
So just search for Last Sons of Krypton, a Superman podcast. We'll be coming to you from Australia or some cosmic dimension, wherever we are that week. Up,
and away. Yes, welcome back, Loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. This episode is Khonshu'S Idols. It's all to do with the action figure and all to do with the MEZCO Toys CRESCENT edition of Moon Knight. As you heard before, that was a nice chat that I had with Brian Warshaw. And he knows his stuff for sure. So a big thank you once again to Brian, and all his details for his podcast, as well as his photo album with all his photos, can be found on our episode page. Now, we had some feedback here, and this is to do with the figure. So as it happens, we got a fair few, mostly from our Facebook group. So I'd like to just quickly read them out. So first one we've got is Brian Bizzle, and he says, "Got mine and it is awesome." Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I wish I had one. I'm going to have to trawl through eBay to check if I can find something. But yeah, it's definitely after speaking to Brian Warshaw. It sounds like a figure that any loony should have if they're kind of into that thing. So, look, I don't want to put any pressure on any loonies to have to go get it. So yeah, thank you for that, Brian Bizzle. Next one is from Cam Kret, and he asks, is this CRESCENT edition, is it and the regular version the same sculpt, with just a paint difference? It might be viable to just buy the regular and repaint given the exclusivity of this version. Very interesting take there, Cam. I'm not too sure. Again, I'm not too well versed in the toy figures, so I'm not sure if they are an identical replica, albeit the black and white. For sure, I guess if you do want to, some loonies may want to buy two of the normal edition and just paint one up. But I think as Brian Warshaw mentions, a lot of the fine detailing of the paintwork is part and parcel of the quality of it. So unless you're a very good painter, I'd suggest you kind of look for the real deal. But anyway, thanks for that, Camp. Another one here from Jonathan Boyd, and he says, just got the regular because I already have the Marvel Legends of this costume. Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Very true, very cool. I mean, I've got the Marvel Legends as well. Looks brilliant, and again, this is all mainly based off the Declan Shalvey costume. We also have a kind of a review from one of our listeners here, Josh Druin. So thank you, Josh, for spending time to write up a review of this CRESCENT edition action figure. And Josh writes, the figure is great and probably the best Moon Knight figure made, considering the price. Number one, packaging. Packaging is like any MEZCO figure, looks high-end and collector-friendly. 2, sculpting. The sculpting is good. The details on the head sculpts are insane. 3, paint. Paint is great. Specifically, the blue eyes on the masked head look incredible. Yeah, that's a great point. 4, articulation. Articulation is slightly hindered. The shin guards prevent some of the ankle pivot, although it's still easily posed and can stand in vanilla and dynamic poses. The cloth costume prevents the legs from going super high. Yes, so as Brian had mentioned, it's fantastic, I think, about the fabric covering the joints, but I guess there's a compromise with that. Number 5, the accessories. The accessories are loaded. You get a crescent blade, a staff, nunchucks, grappling hook baton, and a bunch of different swappable hands, including throwing blade hands. Number 6, the outfit is cool. It's MEZCO's spin on the suit from the Ellis Shelby run. They added some paneling on the black of the costume, and the arm gauntlets and shin guards are slightly different. Number 7, the figure is fun as hell. Looks great and is fun to play with. That's always good to hear. Number 8, the value has gone up since it was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. Number 9, watch out for articulation, where I mentioned you don't want to tear the costume or bend the plastic on the shin guards. Also, the weapon accessories are really sharp. Whoa. And finally, overall, it's a great price. I wouldn't pay $100 plus for it. I'll wait for the regular release, but if you're a huge fan of this costume, then I'd say go for it. Thank you so much, Josh, for those words, and for following our kind of review bullet points. Very cool indeed, and it's great to compare your review to that of Brian's. Drop us a line, Josh. I'd be interested to know what you rate this out of 10 with our convoluted moon rating system. But thank you for dropping that in. Anyway, Loonies, that's it from Mooney Missives. Thank you so much. Now, that pretty much wraps our show, and just a few other things to tie up this in a nice big bow. Next phase, we are back into our trade and or arc review, and this is going to be great. I've actually found a very obscure arc for Moon Knight, so I'm keen to see how many loonies out there have it. It's not that hard to find. I found my copies off eBay. It is issues 152 to 154 of Marvel Comics Presents. I think this was released around about the late 80s, 90s, and it's the arc is called Hung Jury, and it's a story about Moon Knight. I haven't read it yet. I'm still waiting for my eBay issues to arrive. Anyway, I'm going to be covering that, and I'll have a special guest host with me. Not confirmed as to who. Fingers crossed it's the person I am aiming for. But anyway, more to be revealed. Just keep your eyes out on the newsletter coming up. So that will be our trade arc review. And as always, let me check. That's depending on the phase of the moon. So we're looking at a waxing gibbous. So that's next weekend. He's a waxing gibbous, and that will give us a trade arc review. So if you can hunt down the Marvel Comics Presents 152 to 154, please do so. Give it a read. I'll put up a discussion thread, and send us your feedback if you can, or if you want to. Also, actually, there's a bit of a double episode coming out next week. So there's that one next weekend. Now, before the Friday, which is the 11th of October, and earlier in the week, I'll be dropping a bonus episode, and this will include a chat that I have with Noel Looney Tunes Tate. And Noel is the frontman of Deleta. Some of you will have heard of him before. He's been on the show a few times. And anyway, I sit down with Noel, and we have a real good in-depth chat about his latest EP, or Deleta's EP, called The Other Void. It should be a ripper of a discussion. We're going to go through each of the tracks. We're going to really look into how it was put together for you music fans out there as well. I know there are a lot of you. You should find this quite interesting. I'll be asking Noel about, arrangements for songs, how the ideas started, what was the thought process, what was the creative process of actually creating each and every one of those 6 songs from that great EP. So anyway, that will drop before the 11th of October, and I wanted to say that because Delita have a gig at Club 331. So again, I'll post up the details of the venue and the times. But if you find this bonus episode interesting, why not pop down and check out Delita live and be assaulted sonically, in the flesh. That should be great. So anyway, looking forward to that. So 2 episodes hopefully will be dropping next week. So busy times for Into the Night. Once again, a big thank you to all the loonies out there that have, that put their hand up, that have involved themselves, that have listened, that have just joined and just, made this a great community that it already is growing to be. A huge thank you to you all. And, it's really fun interacting with you and, discussing Moon Knight and potentially getting you on the show or involving you with the Fantasy Comic League. It's all brilliant. So anyway, loonies, that about wraps it for this episode. Where you can find us. Look, we're on, the old fashioned email at itkmoonknight@gmail.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. The details are in our podcast episode page that comes with this episode that you're listening to right now. Just click on the links and you can find us there. Come join our group on facebook.com/group/ITK Moon Knight. It's growing every day. We absolutely love it. Also, iTunes ratings. Please, if you can, leave a review, leave us a rating. It helps us get exposed to more potential loonies out there that don't know about us. Also, as well, I'd like to give a bit of a plug. I never do, and I really should. We are part of the Collective podcast network, so it's just a band of like-minded podcasters. Please check out all the other shows as well. They are so much fun. If you like what you hear on Into the Night, a comic book character-based podcast, check out the Collective. Again, the link is in this page. It's got shows on Iron Fist, Ghost Rider, the Submariner, Inhumans, Warlock and Thanos is a recent addition. A big shout out there to Al. And there's a lot of other just like geek culture podcasts and also YouTube channels as well. So I like to always shout out our good friends over at I Am Your Target Demographic. We're all under the banner of the Collective. Check us out. And you can also just check Twitter, #TheCollectiveNet. That should pop up some shows that you might find interesting. Anyway, loonies, that's enough from me. As always, may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.